You had some great predictions for 2018, but we got to talk about the news of the day. Let me ask you about, do you remember when books would come out during the Bush administration and you try to figure out, do you just ignore it or do you try to counter it? And I found that ignoring it was hard to do from a communication standpoint because your heart sort of stops every time you see a bad headline. But I don't know if feeding this beast is going to work.
Yeah, look, I think the president's statement was very, very strong yesterday. It's sort of, there was poor Steve Bannon out in the field someplace slogging across the field when all of a sudden a half a dozen aircraft came in and dropped bombs all around him. So I would have left it, like you said earlier, I would have left it by simply saying I think the president's statement speaks for itself and move on. But this White House does have a tendency to punch and punch back and keep punching back, even if it's punching down. And in this instance, they were clearly punching down, particularly after the president's statement last night. So
we're in an election year now in 2018, it's the midterms. What do you think happens to the candidates who have been endorsed and encouraged by Steve Bannon? Do they try to shed that or do they encourage it? What do you think will happen?
Well, I think it depends on whether or not their opponents make it an issue. And we've seen that in the last 48 hours, 24 hours. We've seen that issue being made. In Arizona, Kelly Ward, for whom Steve Bannon appeared, has begun to walk back from him. In West Virginia, Congressman Evan Jenkins is pounding his opponent, Attorney General Patrick Morrisey, over the issue. Morrisey's trying to have it both ways. In Nevada, only in one instance has a candidate stepped forward. Danny Tarkanian, who's had 5 straight losses in general elections, has stepped forward to say, I'm standing with Steve Bannon. But look, this Steve Bannon's influence was going to be de minimis in the 2018 election after what he did to himself earlier this year. You walk out of the White House and say the presidency of Donald Trump is effectively over because I'm leaving the White House. That's going to unsettle a lot of people. And the sort of the maniacal, egotistical self-aggrandizement that we've seen, ending up with him appearing not once but twice at rallies for Roy Moore, has caused a lot of people who might have been inclined even to send him a check or give him some support or welcome his support to say, I don't think that's the way to go.
So last question is, do you think that the president benefits in terms of accomplishments, tone and tenor of the White House by having a complete severing with Steve Bannon?
Well, absolutely. Bannon, again, I go back to what he said when he left the White House, which was, I'm leaving the White House, so therefore the Trump presidency is effectively over. This guy has a huge opinion of himself, and people who have a huge opinion of themselves and serve as aides to presidents tend to have really, honestly, poor views of the man that they serve. And so, yeah, I think it is better. He was clearly out there creating problems for the president by taking on the president's allies in primaries and by saying extraordinarily bizarre things. So he has now marginalized himself. He's like that famous photograph of the Vietnam War of the monk who goes out there and pours gasoline on himself and then lights himself on fire. Steve Bannon did that over the last 2 days.
Wow, that is quite an image to end on, Karl. Thanks so much. Everybody check out his column today in the Wall Street Journal. Thank you.